Greetings and salutations, everyone. Happy Wednesday. It is 7:30, and what time is that? It is time for Global Recovery Today here on UBN Radio Network, heard every Wednesday here. And, of course, I'm your host, Walt Lusk, and Tyson Elliott is finally back in the studio. It is good to see the whites and the blues and the greens of your eyes.
Beautiful. It's good to be home. As much as I don't like fighting the traffic to get here, it's different being in the studio and really, being able to kind of settle into, what the message is about. And
I agree. The energy and it's different. I've done it all as well. And even when we do pre-records, for example, where it's not live right now, and the energy is just totally different.
Yeah.
I did one show. We were halfway into it, and the engineer goes, "This isn't working." And we had to start all over. It's like we were halfway through the show. I hate it when that happens. By the way, this is a call-in show, and if you want to call in, please do anywhere that you can hear our voice here in the United States. And our number is area code 323-524. 2599. That's 323-524-2599. And Tyson is the co-founder of the Global Recovery Today, which is a group of like-minded people dedicated to finding real solutions for addiction and its root causes.
I want to, I was evaluating, what is the purpose of Global Recovery Today? I wear a lot of hats and, being part of working with psychedelics, plant medicines and other forms of psychedelics, and dealing with not only addiction but the root causes, trauma, and what we all to some degree suffer from, which is separation. We are very much a part of a culture that seems to isolate us so that we can be productive and specialize in a very specific area. And in that, we stay a little separated and almost a little ignorant. We can be a master of, science in one area, and because we don't understand how it affects the greater global problems. For example, we deal with, an economist that has no understanding of ecology. And, you can, working in a time now where every element really affects, how this whole global solutions that we're going to be coming up with. And it starts with the individual. And I know it seems a little abstract, but, hopefully in time we're going to come back around and sort of piece together what's going on. But I wanted to start by saying I'm not an expert really in anything. I've had, my own experiences, and I don't want, this isn't about therapy for people. It's about because I'm not a therapist. It's about inviting people on to share their experience so that people that are considering reaching out for help using maybe plant medicines, Ibogaine, ayahuasca, any of the other ones we talk about here, to help, facilitate transformation in their life. I'm a firm believer that while the medicines are amazing and very helpful, that they're not absolutely necessary for the healing process. But because we are very much so immersed in a culture that's dysfunctional, to break the veil, these powerful medicines can do that. Now, what do we do with it when we leave? Like, how do we integrate? How does that change the world that I'm in? And what I would like to make the focus of Global Recovery Today and the big picture about, how do we together collectively that are on the path of inquiry and waking up and seeing how our choices impact the greater good, really are looking at our connection not just with our direct relations, our mother, brother, father, husband, co-workers, but, the whole planet, how our choices affect everybody. So that sort of global consciousness is what really I think Global Recovery Today is about. But we come all the way back to the individual. What can the individual do now to break the veil, to get the healing they need to start to wake up? And I went to a conference, Psychedelic Sciences 2017, put on by MAPS. We've talked a little bit about it.
Yeah, and you broadcast from there, too.
I did broadcast from there.
Up in Oakland.
And I was blessed to work, I've got a coworker. His name is Charles Shaw, and he's a very intelligent man. He's done a lot of radio shows and done some film, and I really respect his opinion, and he had some observations on some ways that I could get better and how to really allow people to come on and share their experience. And so it was very humbling, and I really want to set up a new format so that when we start the show, maybe there's a beginning where we talk a little bit about some of the experiences and some of the reasons why we're here, and then we turn it over to the guests, and hopefully over time guests will call up to share their experience so that we could broaden perspective. And that's really ideally what I'd like to offer, is such a broad perspective that more people can come and find some some courage and some inspiration and even some solution to whatever it is that they're trying to transcend. Because the truth is that they may be the one that needs to do it, but they don't have to do it alone. We don't have to do it alone.
Absolutely not.
And what we're going to talk about towards the end of this is how can we build a community? How can we rely and support each other in this process? So we do have a caller, and we have somebody who has actually come through the program that has her own story. And I would like to invite Janet in to come and share her experience. So, Janet,
hey, Jan, welcome aboard. Uh-oh.
And now we have no sound. So,
you're kidding me, right?
Is that us or is that her?
Say.
All right. We love our technical challenges on this show, so bear with us, guys. Janet's been here waiting patiently and was online and ready to share her experience, but for whatever reason now is not. So we're going to, fill the time with a little bit about what I know about people that decide to use plant medicines, whether it's ayahuasca or Ibogaine or something outside of the box. Let's even look at cannabis right now, because whether you're doing regular pot, smoking it, eating it, you're doing oils or vaping it, or you're just using CBD, many people that struggle with addiction, anxiety, depression have been utilizing marijuana as a transition or as a medicine as opposed to antidepressants, anything else, that would be used that a traditional doctor might.
Can you hear us now, Jan?
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Yes. Okay, great. So kind of finish that idea is, we're going to talk a little bit about, how substances can be used to transcend as a form of harm reduction. But Janet, how are you, dear?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, thank you for showing up. I really applaud your courage and your willingness to stay in this thing. And, I'm just so happy for you. Maybe you can share with us a little bit about how you started on your journey into plant medicine.
Well, it started probably about a year ago. My drug of choice is methamphetamine. 20 years. Functioning. I went to school, had a job, family, but needed it every day just to get through. So about a year ago, I just would Google meth addiction, how to get over meth addiction. And I found Ibogaine. And I don't know if you remember, Tyson, but I called you probably in October of last year, and I talked to you. And I wanted this for so long. I wanted to get the monkey off my back, to be normal. I remember driving down the road and looking over at people and thinking, oh, they're normal. They don't need to use like I do. I hated myself. I hated who I was. I hated the lie. Nobody in my family knew. Mm-hmm. My husband, I told probably 2 years ago. I've been married for 18 years. So for 16 years, my husband had no idea. That could really get to a person. Just the shame, the guilt, just everything. So I called you in October of last year and talked to you. And I just didn't really think that it was ever going to be within, like most people, we live paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. Didn't think I was going to be able to do it. Talking to my husband, he's like, well, you just have to get by. We justified it as saying, this is like people who take a pill every day. You just have to, do speed every day. I wasn't okay with that. I just wasn't. Mm-hmm. So I just, more reason. I mean, I read everything about Ibogaine. I read all the scientific stuff, how the alkaloids pulled from the root. I mean, I listened to podcasts. I just learned everything about it, and I'm like, this is what I need. Because I knew, trying to quit before, that there was something wrong with my brain. I'm not producing the dopamine that I need, or the pathways aren't right, and I can't really explain it, but I knew there was something wrong. So I found a local ayahuasca ceremony where I live, and I went to do ayahuasca on a Saturday, one ceremony, and just cried all night. All night long I cried, and just cried and cried. And that was on a Saturday. On a Wednesday, I called my mom, told my mom everything about my addiction, the length of time, and I said, I need more. My brain needs to be fixed. The anxiety, I couldn't sit still. I was pacing back and forth, crying all the time. I think Mother Ayahuasca helped me to be able to go tell my mom and to just admit to everybody that I have problems. Mm-hmm. And then I called you. I don't know if you remember that, crying, Tyson, call my mom, talk to my mom, Mm-hmm. And I was headed down to a clinic on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And Ibogaine scared me because I had so much, believe it or not, repressed trauma from being a childhood, dysfunctional family. Mm-hmm. Nobody's grows up in dysfunctional families, right? I was the only one. Sure. So I think Ibogaine, I was afraid that it was going to bring back memories because I don't remember my childhood. But it wasn't like that. I didn't have a bad experience. It wasn't pleasant at all. I know the people that took care of me. You know who you are. I love you. God bless you. But I knew in the middle of, probably within 6 hours of doing the Ibogaine, I looked up at one of the caretakers and I said, my brain's getting fixed. My brain's getting fixed. And it was, the pathways in my brain was being fixed.
So you could actually tell or feel what was going on.
Yeah. I didn't have really bad visions or anything like that I remember. Mm-hmm. I was really nauseated. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't anything really bad. It was just fixing my brain, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful. I wish I could share it more to people and express what it did to me to people, but people just don't accept it. Mm-hmm. And I had never done hallucinogenics before. I was not that person. Mm-hmm. But it changed my life. Mm-hmm.
Janet,
it gave me my life back.
Can you elaborate on how people are not accepting it? I mean, hey, if you did this, you have experienced it firsthand, it worked. I mean, what's there not to accept?
Well, I still go, to meetings every day. I go to a meeting, but people seem to think of it as a drug, and they're not willing to accept that. I think they're just really set in their ways. They think that if you just do it their way, you could get by. And I agree, you can. Mm-hmm. But it takes a long time. Mm-hmm. And within that time, my mom has been in Al-Anon for 15 years. And it took her 3 years to have that spiritual awakening. Mm-hmm. Finally get it. Mm-hmm. But when you're an addict, you can't wait 3 years. Mm-hmm. You can't get through life.
It's a long time.
You can't get through your day. Yeah. Let alone, you can't wait that 3 years to get to that point. This really, it's a crash course. It's a crash course. There's a lot of processing when it hits you hard. And I just thank everybody who went through this journey with me. I feel we were all there at the same time for a reason. Everybody, I keep in contact with everybody. Mm-hmm. It's just without sounding. I feel like when I talk to people about it, I sound like I'm like a weirdo, Mm-hmm. But it works.
It does, and so Yeah, to kind of like bring it home, because we go and we do this thing that there's some judgment out, but there's this knowing, right? So you went and you were blessed to have the ayahuasca experience and to sort of have the plant medicine experience, and within days you realized you needed to go get help and that there was real solutions. So that's a beautiful, that in and of itself shows that there are ways for people that are really afraid of stepping directly into Ibogaine, that maybe and they don't have support from their family and they can't get it. We had a gentleman on the show last week or the week before who has not been able to garnish support from his family, and so so we're in a battle that is going on inside of our homes, that place that's supposed to be the safe and the support, because we just don't know. Okay, so it's not a blame thing, it's just a lack of people to support us. So we've got to go to that internal guide, and then or get ayahuasca to get you, because there's something in you. You went online, you took the medicine, and you got down, and you got treatment. Now you go back, and what we know is that Ibogaine is a lot of things, but one of the things that it really is not is it's not a cure for addiction, and it's not going to be that for anybody. I mean, what we do and how we live our lives, because ultimately you do have free will at any given time. If you were suffering enough and other things weren't working, you may choose to go back to your substance of choice, because for a period of time it did work. And I know for me, alcohol, it immediately works, and it will calm me immediately, and then I will have started the cycle again. So it's just not an option. I've got to find other ways. And you went back and you did. You tell me again, because I remember I came down to the clinic when you were just having finished with your treatment. How long did you stay with us?
I was only supposed to stay for a week.
How long did you end up staying?
And I ended up staying for 3.
Okay,
Yeah.
Which is beautiful, and I wish that for everybody. I try
at least 2.
I try to let people know, like, look, okay, come down and get the bare minimum, but ultimately, what's really gonna make the difference is that period of time afterwards. How much you really invest in not putting yourself in a stressful environment, right back to the culture to which your addiction is a function. Many people can come and do the 1 week, and then they do go back and they're able to stay sober and start their recovery process. But tell us a little bit about that. So you came, you had the 1 week, and then what'd you do? You stayed and did what?
Well, I was 1 week, and I think I was supposed to go home on Sunday, and I did Ibogaine on Friday. Mm-hmm. So I was actually released on Sunday morning from the Ibogaine treatment room. Mm-hmm. And I just knew I needed more. I knew my journey wasn't over. I knew I needed a lot more healing. And I still do, but I just knew that it wasn't over. Mm-hmm. So I called my mom and talked to my mom and my husband, who is so supportive of me. And I said, I need more. Mm-hmm. I talked to my job. They said, get better, have your job when you get home. Mm-hmm. And that's so important, that you have that support. And I did. And I stayed for 2 more weeks, and I was actually able to do some more healing with some other plant medicines. I did ayahuasca. I was supposed to do it for 3 nights. I did it for 1 night, and I didn't do it for the other 2. I'm okay with that decision. Thinking back, I wish I would have done it, but I'm okay. I'm okay with my decision.
Yeah. It's intense. It's heavy. You're going through a lot. And I mean, I'm always in awe at, the people that come and the kind of things that get uncovered and that they face, and then they step back into the medicine and they do it again 3 days in a row. But I do say, for people, whether they come to our clinic or they find, other practitioners, that my experience has been is to just go and do ayahuasca once or twice and then go back immediately to your culture is not honoring how this medicine works. It's really like taking like half of your antibiotics. You just got to really kind of dive into it and minimize the stress you put yourself under right afterwards. I mean, this really is about allowing yourself to rebuild from a different place. And if you get yourself reactive by getting stressed out, then we aren't really creating a way of being. We're more responsive, right? Reactive.
I would say reactive is
reactive
the word.
as opposed to responsive. Yeah. So you stayed and you did more work and you kind of hit a little. You did one. And you were like, oh my gosh, this is a lot, and you healed from there. And then you went home and you picked up a practice. What's that been like?
I got home. I think 3 weeks after I got home, I did another ayahuasca ceremony locally.
Okay.
I love the people I sit with. They're amazing. And it was beautiful. I actually got a gift and I danced with her. I just embraced her. I helped her. It was beautiful.
Yes.
And it was beautiful. And every day I'm learning more. It's ongoing journey. It's a process, not an event. And I'm in the process. And I'm just so grateful for you for allowing the tools or having the tools that people could go and use to get better. Because I felt hopeless. And I know there's so many other people that are hopeless, that feel hopeless, but there's hope. There's so much hope. You just have to want it, and you have to down to your being, and you could overcome it. You could overcome it. But one thing I feel is your typical, your AA and NA, which I totally respect it and I love it. But you need to really get to the root. Why did I start doing this? What's the reason? And I think medicine helps you see that. And once you can get to the reason and kind of just be okay with it. When I did my last ayahuasca, I was going to a dark place, and I kept going to this dark place, and I would open up my eyes and get away from it. So I had one of the facilitators come over to me, and I explained to him, and he sat with me, and I let myself go to that dark place. So I went there, and I felt it, and I just felt it and saw it, and I just went past it. It's not as bad as I thought. I just have to feel it and then just move on. And that's what I'm doing. I'm moving on, and it's not over. I still have a lot to learn. But I'm just so grateful for where I am.
Yeah, your willingness to even continue, working. You go to meetings, right? So and going into your meetings, it's difficult. One of the things you mentioned about, being a secret, not being honest with your husband, and driving in the car and you look over at the person and you're like, oh, they're normal, I'm separate, and this is that separation, that veil of separation, because we're a secret, and so when we're not honest about it, that creates this difference, and it's hard to have this thing that's working so well for you, and maybe even like me, this profound desire to share it, right? Like,
yes.
This profound desire to do, but like when I go to my AA meetings, it's not my place to interject into the process there. So, you know what I mean? Like I can go and I can, get a sponsor, I can show up, I can talk about how the program's helped me. And then if somebody outside of it finds out about what I do, but I spent, several years maybe initially proselytizing inappropriately, I believe. And it's really hard because I see people suffering, and I want to.
I say it must be the most difficult thing in the world. You got to have a better solution than all this, and you got to sit on your hands.
This is the schmexpert part. This is the part, like I said here. I know at the beginning that I'm not a therapist, and I have a tendency to kind of talk as if I know.
Well, no, you're not a therapist, Tyson, but you are. And then my definition. It's so funny. I heard this when I was in Canada years ago. The crazy Canadians. The definition of an expert is a has-been under pressure. Expert.
Yeah.
So, you are an expert, and you have firsthand experience on a lot of things. So, no, you're not a practitioner, but you know what? You know what you know what you know, and you know what you've experienced, and you know what you're talking about.
Well, and I think ultimately this is about each of us being willing to stand up and say our truth and be as authentic as possible,
Absolutely.
Which gives people the courage to do the same. And so what we're going to do, Janet, her and I have been talking about this, and I've got, as you can imagine, plenty of people out there that are needing to be involved in community and be able to speak their truth. So we are starting a group, and there are going to be some local groups meeting, and there's going to be online groups. It's going to revolve around the website aftergain.com. That is the URL that we've picked up.
Great. Great.
There is any number of people that work in recovery and on their own recovery that are going to be, coming together to have a place to continue the healing. And so, Janet has agreed to help get involved.
Cool.
Because she, just like me, right? So, Janet, you got a very valuable education.
Firsthand.
Right? Like, who would go to college to get the kind of education that it would take to be able to help people or to be able to, to do what we're doing, what we're going to be doing now? It's nobody in their right mind would sign up for this education, right? It's just a little too dark. And, but once you transcend it, it's your gift. How does that resonate with you, Janet? Because I know, we can look back on those experiences and say it was 10, 18 years of hell, but like the integrated, Janet, that is all part of, the beauty of what makes you, very unique and valuable to the healing process for not just you, but everybody else that's in your field.
You're kind of breaking, so I can't
you can't hear
all
what
of it, but I kind of got some of it.
I'm talking about your experiences, even the dark side, the dark stuff, the shadow stuff being your great gift and the thing that we have to build on.
And I want to share it. I used to tell my husband every day, I want to share with people because I go to my AA meetings, my NA meetings, and people are so angry. They're angry. And there's no need to be angry. You just, everybody, I feel if everybody would just do ayahuasca ceremonies, this world would be a different place.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
Because I used to be angry, drive down the road, people would get me so upset. I'm not angry anymore.
Right, but if you're angry, there's a source for that anger, right? So, then that's many times why we trip out and go do other stuff just to try and address our anger.
Yeah, it's those unresolved issues, and that's what the medicine, ayahuasca, psychedelics specifically is. They do permeate the blood-brain barrier, and we have these patterns, these beliefs, these mindsets that once we get triggered, and there's a term for it in neuropsychology. It's called amygdala hijacking. And what happens is that something happens, somebody does something, we relate that to a past experience to which we have what we call a charge, and it will immediately put us into the fight, flight, or freeze, and then the angry, resentful story comes up, and we lash out. And, come on, we see it all around us. And Janet, you're a different person. The person that called me in panic the first time and then I didn't hear from for who knows, as if, because many people never get the opportunity to call back. I'll get the one call and then I'll never hear from them again. And we know that many of them don't make it. And, and for you to then call me back months later, like literally bouncing off the bottom.
And still having his phone number.
Well, just, I don't know that I didn't do my job the first time other than I can't facilitate the willingness. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll do the best I can to help. And the thing about it is, I spent many years in sales as a master manipulator selling things that I had no passion for. I sold financial instruments. I mean, I was like everything I really hated about this world, and I couldn't stop drinking. And I judged myself as being this master manipulator that abused this sort of ability to convince people and to build people's trust. And it wasn't until I came full circle and started working in, the medicine and in such an area where it really is scary, and it really is, for people to send their children to Mexico to do one of the world's most powerful psychedelics. I mean, you really got to trust somebody. And so to be able to now, use that skill set to help people overcome the fear, I feel very humble and I feel very grateful. And then sometimes I feel not enough, when I can't get through, and it's sad. But then I get the calls like, for you to call back really at your bottom and really crying. And, I remember my answer to you. You remember, the answer was, you got to tell the truth. You got to stop being a secret. You just got to call and let them know how deeply you suffer. And because, your fear was that you weren't going to have the financial support, that you weren't going to be able to get it. And I'm like, look, man, just you got to go and be honest, and and then get her on the phone with me, and I'll do my job, right? And
yes,
and that's
my relationship with my mom is better than it ever has been, ever. Even my dad. You know, my dad, I was so afraid to tell him that he wouldn't accept me. He would, you know, and I didn't tell him till I came home. And I thought, no, now how do I tell him? Because I've already been there, you know. I just went and visited him up in Santa Barbara last weekend. Our relationship is the best. The truth will set you free. I believe that.
Right.
And everybody knows now. It's not a secret. And even when I was in Mexico, I thought, you know, I don't want to do like a testimonial because I don't want anybody to know. I don't care anymore. I have no shame. I'm proud. I'm proud of where I've been. I'm proud of where I am. And if I can help one person, it's all worth it. That's
Absolutely.
how I feel.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and kudos to your mother. Again, you know, we're dealing with a woman 20-some years in Al-Anon who really was, I don't want to say done helping, but she felt like she'd tried everything. And you had said, I mean, how many times, you know, you reach that end of the rope and there's only so much. And, you know, to have her even consider, you know, she asked me a lot of questions. She's like, what is this? I don't know what it is. And she's like, you know, her love for you. She's like, look, I'm willing to try anything at this point. And you know, so again, you know, I'm always in awe at when it really comes down to making that hard decision, people have the courage to do it. And that for you to be able now, how many months now?
My clean date's February 4th. So I'm going on, 4 months?
That's right. So that's amazing, right? When was the last time you had 4 months sober?
I don't even know.
There it is. There it is.
18 years ago.
Wow. Beautiful.
There it is.
That's it, right? So, so now moving forward, and you know, when you and I talked about you coming on and sharing your experience, I understand that people are out there looking for a vehicle and for a place to be able to be authentic and to share their experience. And it's really important for us to stay connected for the healing, because you live in and tell me about your current area. Like how many people, what's it like where you're at? How many people know about it? How many people honor it? That's the hard part, right?
Nobody knows about it where I live. I live in a very small town in northern Arizona.
Okay.
Although it's the rehab capital of the world, they say. But I mean, I guess there's more halfway houses than, you know, per capita than anywhere. But nobody knows of this. Nobody knows of this. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard for me every time I go to a meeting not to want to share it, you know, not to want to just tell people, you know, there's hope. Mm-hmm. You know, go do this. It could help you. But I can't.
Yeah.
You know, I can't.
So let's kind of move towards the subject of, you know, the idea that we're using drugs to help people transcend addiction. And it's because what I am very clear, the drugs aren't the problem. And for many people, they're the solution. They saved my life. And, you know, and so it's a real distraction from the truth that we're just, you know, doing abstinence, incarceration, and then cognitive behavioral therapy and trying to, you know, we're just not even close to the real problem, right? What the medicine does with the direct experience and what you can do internally is 10 years of therapy in one night. And, you know, I can't explain that to people. Everybody's got to have their own experience, but we can come together and share that so that enough people, there's a preponderance of evidence. I asked you when you came home if there were any other, you know, how did you feel? How was your anxiety? Were you using any other medicines? And so share with me a little bit about that again, about what happened there.
When I came home, the anxiety was still there. Just not being able to sit still, really, just, you know, not feeling comfortable in my skin. But I'm learning to deal with it. I went and I did another ayahuasca ceremony and that helped. But you know, I'm okay with it now. I just have to deal with it when I have to get out of my head, because my head's not a good place to be. So I get out of my head and I just have to go here. I have to focus here.
Janet, have you tried meditation?
Oh, I do.
Okay.
I meditate.
Okay.
I listen.
Okay.
A great person, I don't want to say names, gave me a great website for meditation, guided meditation. Good. And I do that.
You're welcome to use the people
it.
at the staff there. It's okay if you're talking about anybody at our like Philip or.
But it's just sometimes it's hard. I try to meditate. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be meditating. Stop thinking, you know. So it's you know, it's difficult, but I do it. Every morning I read out of 3 books, you know, the daily readings, and I just without my family and my husband and my daughter and my mom and my dad, I don't ever want to go back to that dark place.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what, I don't have any cravings at all to do speed. But sometimes I just get, the anxiety, like am I I don't know what to do with myself,
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time sleeping sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as I'm not doing drugs, I'm okay.
Right, and again, the drugs, it's such a interesting place to be, because right now there are rehabs and recovery homes that are starting to work with CBDs, cannabis, both with and without THC, depending on any number of things that you might be struggling with as an individual. I'm a big fan of CBDs because of what I know about that we all as human beings have a cannabinoid system that has been depleted ever since the criminalization of hemp and marijuana, and so it's been eradicated from our systems. It used to be growing in fields, and the cows would inhale it and we'd ingest it, and it is it's throughout our entire body, and it helps deal with inflammation, and
yes, it does.
Because of it, we all have a host of illnesses that could be addressed by simply augmenting. And the good news is that CBDs are available through the Farm Bill that was passed in 2014. Anything that has 0.2 or less THC is considered a hemp product. There is a very good one I'm going to refer you guys to, it's called Prime My Body. It is a nano-emulsified CBD that is almost 100% bioavailable because of this process of the way that they make it, and really important, because just taking CBDs, you may only get 10-15% of it ingested because we digest it and it gets broken down, and but even then, you are it's doing good. It's just the amount you need to take. You can go to the website Feelin Good, and that's FEELINGOOD.primemybody.com. It is, again, non-psychoactive CBD. It's regulated as a food, not a drug. So we can't make any claims as to its effectiveness. But I can tell you that I have talked to, at this point, hundreds of people who have had profound healings from anything from fibromyalgia, chronic pain, sleeplessness, migraines. There are many things that individuals have had that these CBDs have helped them transcend. But the reality is that even if you don't have a condition that you need to treat, that we could all benefit from CBDs for inflammation, because our body naturally has had it.
Yeah, our bodies have got more inflammation in it than you think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, today by a diet and what we eat and the atmosphere and all that jazz.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, again, holding true to what, Global Recovery Today, what we're trying to do is talk about what can we do as an individual for holistic health. And, we don't shut the door. I'm not shutting the door on drugs or substances, pharmaceuticals maybe, because I feel like there's a lot of super sinister agendas in the pharmaceutical industry. So if we can stick to,
or just about simply just side effects. I mean,
yeah, listen,
natural
plant medicines, doing it in conscious community where people that know us and our addictions are able to observe how they're affecting us. Our medical doctors aren't necessarily the best ones to advise us on holistic health. They may not be the right one. Didn't you go and see your doctor? What did your doctor tell you, Jenna?
I did. I was honest with him. I told him I was doing ayahuasca. He was okay with that. He wanted to put me on it was porn or something for anxiety. And he did give me like 7.5 milligrams, and it wasn't really doing anything for me, so I just stopped taking it. I don't want any pharmaceuticals. I don't want any, even though pills weren't my drug of choice. I obviously have an addictive personality, and I don't want anything.
Yeah.
So I'm trying just to do it on my own, and I'm doing it.
Beautiful. And I want to be clear, that I am not, it's tough when you are like me, like you, and like so many people listening, or that, that we'll be working together with, is that we quickly, early in our lives, started to reach for substances as a way of handling life. And so we stopped maturing and we created this relationship. It's this drug-seeking behavior or this seeking something outside of ourselves, as opposed to certain practices, let's call them rituals, that for many generations we developed to help deal with the mental obsession. The problem is rooted in the brain, right? So we have to be very careful that we don't wake the demon of drug seeking and reaching outside of ourselves. So I hear you, maybe the anxiety is there as an indication that I need to change my practice. I need to sleep more. I need to change my diet. I need to exercise. I need to breathe. I need to look at my relationships. Maybe my work is triggering me. Maybe there's something in my life that isn't quite right that needs to be addressed because this anxiety is an indication. So working with it on that level is where we really need to stay, for those of us that know once we start seeking external gratification from substances, we've opened the door up, and it's dangerous. So as I discuss CBDs, it's because I also know that some people, if you just remove the drugs right away and you put them back into an unresolved family dynamic, then, how do they maintain? And so there is this movement which started with harm reduction, which is now gradualism, where, okay, we're going to stop slamming dope and maybe I'm going to smoke weed for a while until I can get to the point where I can get into, abstinence with some yoga and some really conscious community, so let's, we got to figure out a way, to really support people wherever they're at in their path of letting go, and it's a tough time because who do we turn to for that guidance? Because, there isn't a formal education in that. The traditional rehabs don't talk about that. Medical doctors don't really talk about that. So, yeah.
No, they don't, and they haven't had the training. And what a lot of people do, whether they know it or not, is they self-medicate, right? I have a problem. This seems to help, whether it's meth or alcohol or pot. And it takes the edge, whatever that edge is. And whether it's legal or not, it works, right? And then all of a sudden it gets out of control.
So the idea is to be able to have a format and a group where people can come together, talk about where they're at, what they're taking honestly, and not be judged, not be called, oh, you're not in recovery. You're, you know what I mean? Which is the problem with the very, sort of rigid, almost dogmatic AA structure that can be in cases, can be it's a little bit of, I don't want to say shaming. That's coming from me.
Well, I use the word
internally.
shoulding, SHOULD.
Yeah.
You should be doing this and you should be doing that.
Yeah. So ideally, what we're looking to do is have a format where people can come in and be like, oh, here's what I'm doing, here's where I'm at, and and the people that in that group learn to get to know you, and then because we are staying, there's a certain amount of accountability to stay in a relationship where people can lovingly share the truth with you and how you're showing up, and then we can see the difference. Oh, this looks like it's helping, or no, it looks like it's not helping in this area. That way we can actually really consciously decide, okay, I think it's time to let go of that and let's try this new. And who has some experience in that. That's going to be the idea. We don't really even have a name for this group, but it is going to be very much about, utilizing ayahuasca, other medicines out there to help sort of remove this veil and expedite the process of getting to those root causes and conditions and traumas that are keeping us separate, shame and guilt, woundedness, Did you have, give me an idea, is there any one specific thing when you went through your ayahuasca experiences that kind of was revealed that really, so once you realized that you realized that you were on the path for healing, or was it just a more general, or?
I think it was when I was in Mexico, the 5-EMO or
5-MeO, yep.
That kicked my butt. I did it once and I don't really remember. I remember just blasting off to another dimension. And I don't remember really anything else. I was told what I said and it wasn't very nice. But I remember waking up, crying my eyes out, my nose. I mean, just, it was not good.
Or was it?
I mean, it wasn't good as far as the crying and everything else, but I felt a lot was released. Mm-hmm. So I did it once. And I said, who am I so angry at? Because people told me when I was screaming, who am I so angry at? I need to do it again. So I did it the next week. I was angry at me. I had one of the gals at the clinic who I loved to death sit in with me, so she could tell me what happened during, the procedure. And it was me I was yelling at.
Whoa.
Because I was, the first one I was just saying, F you, F you. But the second one, it was F you, Janet. F you, Janet. It was me. And I don't remember saying that. But then I remember like saying, oh my God, it was the wall I was so angry at. It was the wall. I need to break down that wall. I need to break down that wall. And I remember that part. And the gal who was in there with me said that she not saw, but like felt something just leave my body. And I get chills even just thinking about it. But she felt something just leave my body. Some kind of a, I don't want to, not exorcism or anything like that, but just this energy, this negative energy just leave my body. She said she had never experienced that before. It was the first time for her, but it was beautiful. And when I left that crying, laughing, that was probably one of the biggest things for me, was just breaking down that wall. And it was me. I was angry at. It was me.
So, having, many years under my belt and hundreds of working with patients, having that very experience you're talking about, what I've come to believe, and again, I don't know anything, but what it seems to be is that, we do shame ourselves and we don't realize, we blame other people, but underneath it all, we're realizing to some degree it's us and our separation. And so these layers upon layers get built up and we lose touch with what it is that we're avoiding. And then, all of that stuff builds up and it becomes this, the spirit of, not enough, the spirit of this victim, the spirit that, is very much detached from our authentic self and our spirit that is underneath that is crying to come out, that's trying so hard to be that thing that we know we're capable of. And this medicine immediately and, unceremoniously just kind of rips it away and it like turns it around. And you're like, whether you're remembering now, like to some degree, we're not capable of facing this. It's too painful. It requires something so powerful where you don't have a choice to do it. And even then we kind of check out, right? Like we don't really know what's going on, but there's some reckoning going on. And when then the nervous system, which is holding it physically in our body, releases it through vomiting, through crying, through all of the other ways that we excrete, we get it all out of our system and then we feel so light. And then there's a new light inside of us. There's this almost childlike innocence that's free to like roam the world again. And we're like, oh my God, where has this been? Where has this feeling been? Right? It's like being a kid again.
Yeah, that's how I felt. I was 6 years old. I was 6 years old.
Yeah, yeah. And if we go back out into our culture and around the unresolved and the very sick people that don't know and don't see, and we start to react the way that we do, we will slowly cover that youthful innocence and that childlike wonder again. We will start to build a case against the world, and we will, slowly regress back to that point where we've lost touch with what it is it really is like to feel connected and joyful. And that's why we continue doing the medicine. And that's why people are like, well, you're just going to go back and keep doing medicine. You're hooked on ayahuasca. Well, no, in order to effectively stay free in this society and to be part of it, I need to go in and do the healing work. Very few of us can be in it and not of it and not pick up the toxic mental parasites that are being spewed.
It's no different than
by everybody. And none of them, people don't know they're doing it. It's just part of their belief structures and part of the way they operate and part of the way that the world that we live in is right now.
Well, it's like you have a computer that you've just been using for 4 or 5 years, and it just gathers junk. Right? And you reboot it. Maybe you run through an antivirus program and some stuff's pulled out and it runs faster and it runs better just because there's a lot of the stuff that was just bogging it down is gone.
Yeah. And so again, it allows, I know we're close to being done here, but Janet, again, I'm grateful for your willingness to step in and help with the community building part for your own salvation, I'll use the term, but also the continue, being an example of why we continue to do the medicine is so that you don't have to pick up antidepressants. You don't even have to take CBDs, which while I say, yeah, it can help, I believe that there's no reason you should have to take anything, but some of us are where we are, and let's not pretend, because it could lead to you doing something that could kill you. So if you're in community and you're talking with people in recovery, and you can one day at a time sort of look at right where you're at, well, maybe there is an interim solution to somebody that's really struggling, because before it's like, I remember quitting smoking cigarettes when I had like 6 months off of alcohol, and my sponsor was like, well, maybe you should wait to quit smoking cigarettes. This is a very, because when I get triggered stress, I think cigarette and I do it and it helps. And he's like, but he goes, here's the thing. And I was going down to Mexico to start working with another Ibogaine clinic at the time. He says, just promise me this. He goes, before you pick up a drink, pick up a cigarette. Right? Like, so this is my sponsor saying, hey, look, man, as bad as cigarettes are, we know the alcohol is going to kill you a lot quicker than the cigarette. So if it's something that's been helping you and you find that you cannot deal with the stress, pick up the cigarettes before you go to the drink. And that's kind of the lesson that, to me, I do not want to sound like I'm promoting people take a step back to use substances, but we by shaming or making it something that's so awful and terrible, you may be setting up death or overdose or something much worse.
Yeah.
I agree. I have friends that are really stressed and they're trying to quit smoking. I go, no, don't shit on yourself in terms of stopping. Just smoke less, right? And then when you're ready, you'll stop. But you got to be ready and gradual in some cases.
And if we don't do it alone, and we do it where we talk about some alternative solutions, so what am I going to do when I get triggered and stressed out? I've got to come up with a plan. Pause, non-reaction, focus on my breath, use mantra. There's any number of things that that we're going to be talking about in our group setting. I'm not going to go into right now, but I don't develop these. These are practices that have been around for thousands of years. That before people were using energy drinks and macchiatos and and Tinder as their way of feeling connected. There were other things that we did. And
yes, indeed.
So.
Yeah, I was worried about, coming home. I need to lose weight. And my husband told me just a few days ago, he says, we need to work on the inside Janet before we work on the outside Janet.
Well, I think,
I know.
integration, we can do it all right now. There's no, put it off. We can do it. You look beautiful. What are you? And I think it does shift once you start to really take a holistic approach. It's not about losing weight. It's about healthy lifestyle, right?
Yes.
I've had to totally surrender that one. I did, the thing of, of when I went through my divorce, I lost 100 more pounds in about a 2-year period. I went from 280 to 180, the old-fashioned way, binging and purging and hydroxycut. And, I look great, man. I was a total douchebag. And, I didn't like who I'd become, but, I was, the guy who, had the place in the Strand, drove the BMW. I had the money, marbles, and chalk. And you know what? I very quickly relapsed, and I stayed drunk for 6 years and ended up homeless, bleeding from the head in Panama. And I had to start over with a little more humility. And so, now I find myself, struggling with compulsive eating because I very much have my my inability to cope, which transitions into addictive behaviors. It was with cigarettes up until a month ago. I just quit cigarettes. So, thank you, Jesus. I've got myself 30 days or more off that. But the eating is really, the compulsive eating is problematic. And so trying to, figure out new ways to control those behaviors.
Those Big Mac attacks?
Yeah, that's a good example. So.
Well, Janet, is there anything else you'd like to add before add, subtract, multiply, or divide before we let you go?
I just want to say thank you to Tyson, and thank you to everybody at the clinic I went to. I love you all, and I hope to see you again in different circumstances, of course. But I owe my life to this medicine, and if there's anybody who wants to talk to me and ask questions, I'm more than willing to talk to anybody about it, because it changed my life, and it can change other people's lives too.
So yeah, people out there, want to reach out, they can call me at 310-467-6783. They can go to Tyson at Global Recovery Today or Tyson at Ibogaine Institute. But ultimately, there's going to be a hotline set up and an online community for people to, be able to talk about, either their concerns or their experiences, whether they're pre-Ibogaine or they're after gain. So for anybody that would like to be a part of that process, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. If anybody would like to talk to Janet specifically, I'll have access to her contact information.
And your number again is?
310-467-6783.
Okay. And thanks so much, Janet, for participating.
Bye.
I love you,
And say
dear.
bye.
Peace and blessings.
I love
Peace
you.
and blessings as well to you. And you have been listening to and tuned in to Global Recovery
I
Today.
can't hear anything, so.
Okay, bye.
See ya. You want to say anything? Say bye?
That's it.
There we go. Thanks. Global Recovery Today here at Universal Broadcasting Network, UBN Radio, Channel 1 here at 7:30 every Wednesday. And well, not every Wednesday. We're doing every other Wednesday now.
Yeah, it's every other Wednesday
right.
right now. I just not enough time to bring it all together. And
that's okay. But you can catch us on YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, and of course here at UBN. So we're going to close out. Until next time, God bless everybody, and thanks for watching, sharing, and listening. God bless.
God bless. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.